Pause button. Cool. Welcome to the fourth episode of Hands Up. And as I'm doing these recordings or episodes, I'm sort of getting addicted to it as well because I'm enjoying it. As you can see, every episode is becoming longer and longer, and I'm also accepting my own way of speaking and my own voice because some of my friends made fun of it, but I no longer think I need to have a baritone or anything of that sort. Um, so today I have two guests for a change. One of them is Bency Ramakrishna. I hope it was correct, right? I hope it was, but please correct me. But and then we also have Nikita Pathak, who was already one of our guests earlier. And I would request both of you to introduce yourselves before we move forward.
Okay, so hi everyone. Hi Nitesh. Thank
Yeah.
you for having us. I am a lawyer from Bombay. I think those two words sort of are big parts of my personality somehow, so they just come into conversations. I'm fairly new to Delhi, but I'm that rare species who's from Bombay but likes Delhi. uh, I don't ask me to compare, but I do like Delhi. But yeah, and we met because of the book club, so I'm happy we're doing this.
Hi, I think we have already met and I'm just here because
No,
I
this is
couldn't.
for people who have not heard the previous episode, but they'll probably hear only this episode.
So I'm Nikita and I am someone who loves to yap and I am a part-time clown, a full-time explorer of different things. Uh, and I mean, I think I will be the yap queen for this episode, just butting in randomly. So bear with me.
Yeah, so I didn't mention what we're speaking about in the intro, but we're going to speak about this book called Desperately Seeking Shah Rukh, written by Shrayana Bhattacharya. She's very much of a Delhi person, and I think she works in the
World Bank.
World Bank.
research. Yeah, I mean she works. She's basically a researcher who has worked for some big organizations like World Bank, and unfortunately she was unable to find love in her personal life. So
Oh wow.
I mean
That
it's a
note is
fact.
we're starting on that note, huh?
I mean, that is the whole reason for her to write this book, right? Desperately Seeking Shah Rukh. The book itself shows that there was some void or some gap which probably still exists. That is the reason why this book exists, and that's the reason why we read it. And now we're talking about it. Um, I mean, the book, we'll definitely get to the book itself, and before we do that, uh, the huge factor in this entire conversation is the Bollywood hero Shah Rukh Khan, and he is the fulcrum of all of this. But also, as we were discussing earlier, he could also be just a Trojan horse for discussing several other social issues related to women. But before we get into that substantial part, I think there is also this, stardom, which is like an excuse to speak about all of these other issues, right? So let's just talk about how we were introduced to Shah Rukh Khan. Like, what was our first encounter with this hero, and like how he made us feel, or probably we should also talk about which was the first movie we saw of this hero, right? And I think you can start because you are from Bombay, right? Like, it's Shah Rukh Khan's aura is full of Bombay, and also it's very interesting because you're also not a native Hindi speaker. Your mother tongue is Malayalam, right? And how did you see this person as a hero in Mumbai being a South Indian.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to put it because even though technically mother tongue is different because you are raised in a different city somehow, and I've recognized that more and more in the last few months after I moved out of Bombay that Marathi seems more of a mother tongue because when I'm frustrated here, I can see phrases coming out in Marathi and not Malayalam. So, but yeah, I think it's just. At this point you can't really say where you're from. But how I was introduced, I don't remember exactly the moment that I was introduced to him because I don't, for the longest time I was in denial. I I thought that everybody around me was this huge Shah Rukh fan, and somehow women largely. I mean, the signs were all there, everything that Shrayana speaks of in her book. I think the signs were all around me because it was mostly women around me who were gushing over this guy. And I thought, okay, he's fine. What is so great about him? But somehow, all the movies that I thoroughly enjoyed watching growing up were Shah Rukh Khan movies. But one of my earliest memories of watching him was Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. And it till date happens to be one of my all-time favorite movies. I think I can just keep watching that movie. There are so many things about it that I like. There are things about it I also do not like because of course like a lot of movies from the time hasn't aged well in multiple aspects. So if you have to break it down today, you'll find a lot of issues with the movie, but it's still because of the impact it's had on you and because you've grown up watching these movies, it's very difficult for me to look back and say, oh, this is problematic and so now I can't enjoy this movie anymore. um, but I remember there was this sneaker, not sneaker, this jersey that he wears in the movies, this blue green thing, polo shirt. And I remember fighting with my parents every time we would step out of the house because I would see it in all the shops in my area, just fighting with them to get me one of those. So even then, I did not realize that okay, it's this fandom is brewing because I was in denial. Um,
But
and
why were you in denial? What is shameful about being
multiple things because when you uh, I I think not much has changed even now. I think I was running away from everything that women were supposed to like, or the whole society would think just in terms of colors, also, right? Because people said women like pink. I was also supposed to like pink, and I was like, no, I don't like pink. Why should I like pink just because I'm a woman? And because it's being labeled as something that women like, I was just aggressively running in the opposite direction. So I think something very similar happened to Shah Rukh Khan, because I just thought if women are really crazy about this person, I should not be in that camp. I will maybe I'll generally like actors and I'll speak in very technical terms about acting abilities, but not about how emotionally connected I feel to somebody on the screen.
so you're being a contrarian for the heck of it?
Yeah, I think
Oh.
so. For the longest time.
Hmm.
Until
It was also a defense mechanism, I guess.
yeah, yeah. And I think Nikita would also agree because we have also spoken about this pink color issue. And I think it's only when you look back and in hindsight you realize that maybe this is why you ran away from it. In the moment, it just feels like the most natural thing to do. So, unless would you like to add on?
Yeah, I mean, you should also speak about that, but before you get to that, you should, I mean, how did you discover this hero? Like, you are a native Hindi speaker, unlike the both of us. Probably this would be like your initiation into cinema, or what was it like, watching this person? Like, were you encouraged to watch his movies, or you watched it with a family, or what was it like?
So I come from a family where movie going was not a thing. Okay,
Mm.
we didn't go to the movies. I don't know what problem my mom had with the theater, I was also never allowed to go alone also or with friends also for the longest time.
Mm.
So I don't come from a family of movie goers per se.
Mm.
On TV, whatever was there, I used to watch sometimes, but I was more of a cartoon person growing up. So I did not have like, and also I was a very impatient child. So when there was some break or advertisement, I'd switch the channel to see something else, and then I'd switch the channel to see something else. I think most vividly that I remember actually, Shah Rukh coming into your life as a Shah Rukh Khan person, I fully agree with Bency on this entire aspect of, whatever is associated with being feminine and girly, I will run the opposite direction. So this is the same case with me because I think as children you are shown, especially as so in my case I'm like the elder daughter who was supposed to be a son, so there's like a proxy son treatment given. So you grow up being masculinized, looking down on femininity. So same thing as pink color goes and liking Shah Rukh and everything. I didn't see a lot of his movies until very late in my life. Like even the classics like Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, all of these, I watched them very late in life. But when I did, I mean, I could see their appeal. I saw them completely, out of time. But I think what I remember clearly is that when Om Shanti Om came out, I think it was 2008. Yeah. So 2008, Om Shanti Om came out, and I think the hook for me was that Ajab Si song, and after that I was like, oh my god, wow, like wow. I was enamored by the whole entire thing, the kind of wittiness in the film and just suited Shah Rukh so well. And the other two movies that have really, really affected my viewing of Shah Rukh is Swades and Chak De India. So when I watched Swades, I was a child, I didn't know, I thought it was Swedes, okay?
Happened to many, many people.
Yeah, I was like Swedes. And I was like, oh, it's Swades. And then when I watched Swades and when I watched Chak De India, I was like, damn, this guy is good, okay? And another final nail in the coffin for the acting abilities was My Name is Khan. And that kind of solidified that he is a very accomplished actor. I knew nothing about his life, where he came from, Atif, before that, right? I had no idea. I've not never been like a very Bollywood engaged person that way. But for me, these four kind of solidified the whole deal of him being like a terrific actor. And as my mom likes to call it, he acts with his eyes. So
Yes, yes.
so I think that is my sort of when I think I started liking him a lot more when I found the films I resonated with. Otherwise, him as a romantic hero didn't do it for me because romance was also too girly for me to engage in. Like, you romance कौन देखता है? मैं तो action movies देखूंगी, right, and stuff like that. So I think that's me. That's how I got initiated. I don't think I'm still a fan, but I appreciate Shah Rukh much more now than I used to before.
So the first movie was Om Shanti Om.
That I truly appreciated, yes, with
But
Shah Rukh as
what
lead.
was the first one you watched?
I don't even remember. I think it was some Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum only coming on TV, but I didn't engage. It was too long and too many breaks. Okay, I was
Oh,
I was
oh,
just
it was the impatience.
yeah.
Strangely enough, my family was taking me to the theater. So it's like 7, 8 people going to the theater. And I have weird, I don't know if my family is weird, they've taken me to Titanic, Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, and also family movies in Kannada. So these three things I remember. I've seen Titanic in the theater with my family. I've seen Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, and I've seen other Kannada standard family movies which are not like Titanic and Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
Thank
It
God.
was still, I mean,
It was still
Titanic is a
family.
bit much to be
Yeah,
a
yeah,
family
yeah.
movie. So,
But I was in first standard, right? Like, so you just like you, my first movie is that Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. So I was in first standard and it felt like a very cool character. And I tried to imitate that guy, like doing this hairstyle thing. Little bit I did, but I think it was a very passing thing, like 1 month or something of that sort max. And I dropped it. After that, I don't think I watched many of these Shah Rukh Khan thing because my parents separated and I don't think we were going to movies after that. And I started liking Hollywood movies more. And by the time I was in college, my favorite actor was Tom Hanks, and I'd also like developed some sort of I don't know. I looked down upon people who watch Bollywood movies. You can say I was like snob. I had become a snob.
You were.
Yeah.
You sound like one.
Yeah, I was. I had become a big time snob, and I also judged people who watch Bollywood movies, and I thought they're all low IQ people. Uh, and I never took this SRK. Like there was one girl in my this one school who was crazy SRK fan, and there is also a Kannada actor called Shivraj Kumar, which is also SRK. No, the funny part was she was a big Shah Rukh Khan fan, but eventually she married a guy who looked like Shivraj Kumar. And it was like so funny thinking about it. But I think eventually she got divorced also with that guy, so maybe the arc was completed. And I don't know whom she remarried. I heard she remarried. But
I hope she doesn't listen to this podcast. Whoever you are, we are sorry.
We didn't.
No, okay, that was actually. So I used to judge these people because like they had these unrealistic, I felt it was unrealistic. But I could not understand because I didn't have that much of emotional intelligence. I mean, even now I think I have less, but better than that time. So, this Shah Rukh Khan was, I never really understood, I was not able to appreciate his stardom itself till I read this book. So, it was for me a unwanted fact which was floating around, and I was actively ignoring his stardom and his why people like him. I never even bothered about it. But I mean, we'll get to the book. It's only then I started thinking about this actor and why he is desirable, etc., etc. But yeah, strangely enough, my family took me to Kuch Kuch Hota Hai. That is how I got to know about this person. And after that, I think I liked the critically acclaimed movies, both Chak De and Swadesh. I actually still like most of the songs. And even the romantic part in Swadesh was like playful and very, very. It was unlike his
subtle.
other movies,
Yeah.
Very
where it is.
pure, innocent.
So here it was also like attached to the idea of improving the nation and all, which sort of appealed to me. So some light romance around it was actually more palatable than other movies where the whole goal of this guy is to be in love, fall in love, etc., etc. I mean that is my perception because I am not seeing it. I mean I'm also seeing it as a snob. I'm not seeing it as a fan. So my perception was obviously not positive, like maybe I was like 2.5 out of 5, something like that. I was neither here, I didn't hate him. There was nothing to hate in whatever he was doing. There was nothing worth, it was not like disgusting or something of that sort. I felt it was like childishly unreasonable, like too dreamy to be real. I think it's also because I had not seen a healthy relationship in my own house, right? So, I mean, the idea of romance itself was very alien to me because in first hand it itself, my parents had separated, so I didn't even understand what was happening here. So I think all of this sort of and I also was more academically oriented and all of that. So all of this didn't appeal to me as much as maybe. Yeah, as I was saying, my most favorite actor was Tom Hanks only. Maybe I liked Kate Winslet, but for entirely different reasons.
Yeah, Shah Rukh may not be able to do that for you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think uh, I was mostly into books, right? So actually, my real proper interaction with Shah Rukh began with this book, Desperately Seeking Shah Rukh by Shrayana. And I actually discovered this book through Delhi Reads. So they had recommended one more book in the previous month. It was I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki or something of that
Yeah.
sort. So I was very impressed by that recommendation. So based on that, whatever trust built by the recommendation, I thought, okay, this should also be a good recommendation. So that was the sole reason why I picked the book. Um, then how did you guys discover this? Because obviously we're going to talk about this book, right? And how we discovered and why we read this, I think it drastically defines our reading experience itself. I mean, it's not like a deal breaker thing, but it definitely sets up, I would say, context. Like in what context you're reading this, or maybe why you picked it, what motivated you to, read it.
So I think for me that's also tied to the last point that we were discussing about how finally I came to embrace the fact that I do like Shah Rukh Khan. Because of the whole growing up, running away situation. But every time I would speak about the movies that I like, my friends had already started calling me closet SRK fan.
Hmm.
And I used to again detest it
Hmm.
for the longest time. Then this move to Delhi happened, and even until then, I realized all the movies that I keep going back to and I love have Shah Rukh Khan in them. But it's not because of Shah Rukh Khan, okay? Because in my head, I'm telling myself it's because of the story, it's because of the character he's playing, not attaching anything to him. But after I moved, I remember around December is when Dunki released. Um, I was going with two of my very close friends, both of whom are huge SRK fans. So for them, it was a ritual. Movie released, have to go. In my head, also, I'm thinking, okay, this is a movie I want to watch. Again, I'm thinking not because it has Shah Rukh in it, but well, because it's something nice to watch. I go, movie starts, I'm watching, and then finally that song starts playing, Lut Put Gaya.
Hmm.
Here is this massive screen in front of me, and Shah Rukh is there professing his love for the character, and he's singing and dancing, and he's saying Lut Put Gaya. I suddenly realize that there's this huge smile on my face as I watch him. And I suddenly have caught myself doing this, and I'm like, what is happening? And it's almost like I'm close to tears, and there's no reason. It's that part of the movie where he's probably going to get her. They're going to get together because he realizes she's also interested in him. And but then I'm just, because I am so full of emotion, just seeing him emote on the big screen, and I'm like, oh my god, I do like Shah Rukh Khan. So that was the moment of realization for me. And I have gone out and I have I have spoken to my friends back in Bombay saying, you were right. I have been a closet SRK fan. I do like him. And that's when I started thinking about this more and more. Um, because I was thinking, what is it about him that has been so appealing to me since my childhood, apparently? And then that's when I realized, because the kind of love that he shows, which is also a problem that most people have with Shah Rukh Khan and what he does on the screen, the idea is so unreal. It's some crazy standards that are being set, but to my mind, it's amazing. It's what I would want to do for the love of my life. Those are the kind of lengths I would go just to be with the person, or just so that the person is happy. Um, and in that phase of exploration, just thinking, I knew my friends had also read and recommended this book. But so for me, it was multiple reasons. One, of course, this newfound or happy realization moment where I realized I do like this actor. Um, and I thought, okay, somebody who's working at the World Bank, who's an economist, who's done really good work on gender studies, has written about it. Obviously, I also knew going into it that it's not about Shah Rukh. It's like you said, he's used as an instrument to talk about larger issues, social, economic issues. And that's how I ended up picking it. And I truly enjoyed every bit of it because of how relatable a lot of it was. Because she's using Shah Rukh as a tool, but then goes on to talk about issues that we speak about amongst ourselves. Like I realize a
Yeah,
lot of
I'll just cut you there because
yeah,
we'll go into that.
yeah,
I mean, that's a larger discussion. Like going too deep into it will, you know, I mean, we'll do that in the coming after we, discuss how we found this book or why we read this book. But from what I gather, it was like a coming out of the closet moment for you when
true.
you read this and you really acknowledged that you're actually a very big Shah Rukh fan, which you were trying to deny. I understand that Nikita has still not read this completely, but you have read substantial parts of it, and you more or less know the entire contents of it because you heard that other podcast or the long conversation between the author and Seen and Unseen podcast. What is his name?
Yeah, so the
Amit Verma, I
Amit
guess.
Verma, yes, yes.
So, I mean, like, what made you even read half of the book? Like, what got you interested?
So it's actually the podcast that got me interested because at
Uh,
that point in my life I was into podcasts a lot, listening to podcasts. So this Seen and the Unseen episode was like a huge 3-4 hour episode that was up there, and I was just listening to her. And I have a background in gender studies, so it was all the more like like Bency already mentioned that she's an economist at the World Bank, and even she's struggling with love. So
Even she is
yeah,
struggling
so
with
we are totally screwed, man. Like, and
yeah.
then I end up and I share that that I truly appreciated the icon of Shah Rukh when I read the book and heard her speak about him, and I also went to a talk and actually where she was speaking, right? So I've met her also, but I think. This is what made me pick up the book. It was not my copy, so it was taken away halfway, but I will finish the book. But I largely got the themes that she was trying to talk about, and definitely, anything that blends gender with, gender is a lens that you wear. So I think when you put that onto this political economy of movies and stardom and everything, that got me going for the book. That's why I picked it up.
I mean, it was closely related to your academic background as well, I guess. The contents of the book.
Somehow, yeah, they closely, they all came together really well in that particular book.
Okay. I mean, like I think but the book itself contains stuff which you would already have studied, right? Like it's not new information for you. Was it? I mean, what drove you to pick that? Is it because of the Shah Rukh hook, or you wanted to go and see like how it has been presented, etc., etc., or the aura of the speaker in the podcast?
So I think when I heard the podcast, I got to know that it was very clear that that it's not about Shah Rukh as a person. It's about what he represents to millions of people, especially women. So I think why when what you do in academics is often not as interesting, by the way, in the sense you read
Mm.
papers on economy, you read papers on this and that, but to see that put together in that very relatable way, movie going as an experience, when you
Mm.
theorize on that and you comment on the political economy of that, you become interested in mundane things that you seemingly do, and that have such profound effect on your life, and how it is dictated by the market, how it is dictated by economic forces that shape you, how it is dictated by the cultural forces that shape you. So I think it was that particular I don't know what do we call it, cosmos, that kind of made me pick that up.
It's like science writing. Like a scientist does all the hard, equations and experiments and all of that, and then they do science communication by writing for the masses, like in language which is relatable, readable, and consumable. I think that is what you're getting hinting at, right? Like the stuff you studied was like more theoretical, and this is like approachable to a common person, which is also packaged nicely along with movie and popular culture and all of that,
Yes.
which makes it more consumable.
To some extent, yes, but also the theme of it.
Uh,
The theme of it was very interesting because I had not encountered an examination of such a theme academically. So she does it like, it's not that the book is not academic in that sense.
Hmm.
It does quote data, quote analysis from different places, her own analysis about the thing. So I think it's the topic particularly, because I'd never seen it that way before. That movie going as an experience can also be understood within these forces. I'd never noticed it before, and now that door was opened, I was like, oh wow, I've got to read this.
Yeah, I mean, that is also a good segue to, what is this book all about? Like, obviously, we wanted to talk about how we felt about it, how it's affecting our personal lives, and what emotional impact it had on us as readers, etc., etc. But before we go into that space, I think one of you, like since you have also gone through the book once more, before we started this conversation, like why don't you give a broad summary of this book, like what is it all about, like who are the key, and also since it is non-fiction, there is nothing called a spoiler. There's no spoiler here. It's non-fiction. So a broad summary of that would be helpful for everyone, for both of us as well. Uh,
Yeah, so she speaks of how she ended up doing this. It doesn't seem like it was intentional. She was doing some studies with different groups of women, trying to understand informal economy, labor situation across communities in different parts of the country, from Gujarat, Jharkhand, different places. Um, while she was trying, so survey was a big part of the work that she was doing, where she had to engage with women who were working there. I think it started somewhere in 2006. So this research has taken place over a decade, 2006 to 19 or so, when it finally culminated into this book. Um, while she was having these conversations with people, she realized women are also hesitant to open up. But then slowly, her being a Shah Rukh fan, I think there are those antennas you sort of pick up if there is a fellow fan in the vicinity, and somehow she realized that people are willing to talk about their lives the moment you speak, or the moment you start with who's your favorite actor. And lo and behold, it's Shah Rukh Khan. So then conversations just keep flowing from there, and slowly she built up on that, tried to get some more information, and of course, the more people speak, the women were also more comfortable opening up about the situation at home, the situation at workplace, and so she realized throughout these encounters that Shah Rukh became that common link from which she could open up about conversations. Then in the book, what she's done is she's taken a look at lives of 10 women from different classes, different religious backgrounds. Um, it begins with, I think it's two women from your elite. You'll have city bred women who have the maximum access here in terms of economic, financial, social independence. There are, of course, still forces that hold them behind, of course. But amongst your other characters, they are the ones who are doing seemingly better in terms of access. Moves on to middle class, and not really middle class, because she also uses a lot of statistical uh, points to tell you who is middle class, which we can come to later, because that also blew my mind, some of these figures, when you realize you're not really middle class, because when you compare yourself to the rest of the country, you're somewhere else. um, but so there's that group, 2 3 women from that group, where um, people have come from better financial backgrounds, but there are still serious social constraints from their family and in terms of what they can do. So, and then she moves on to the lower classes, where in every which way there are challenges that women are facing. She uses these stories. She has tried to keep in touch with all of these women over the course of her study, sort of to document not just their careers but also their love lives. And she uses that to sort of show what kind of access, what kind of independence do women really enjoy in even today's time across classes. Um, and and all of this is weaved with narratives from Bollywood. So if you're into Bollywood, great, because I mean, I really enjoyed how so many people have caught on to different dialogues from different movies and what impact different songs have had. What do these women resort to in times of difficulty, and what gives them solace? It's very heartwarming to find what people find joy in, even in the worst of situations. And how even accessing these things can be so challenging if you come from a certain economic background. So that's how she's gone about it. And of course, like Nikita also said, a lot of research. And she's spoken to people, it's not just these 10 women. She's also spoken to people who are in the film industry, to see what do they think captures people's attention, and what according to them is this thing about Shah Rukh, and why are people so drawn to it from that perspective. She's spoken to academics also, to understand the economic situation, and the labor force participation. All of those aspects are covered, and she's gone to people from across to sort of understand. And it somehow, now everything I've said here will seem like wildly different things, but in this book it all sort of comes together, which I think is the beauty of the book. So
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify the names and backgrounds of these. I don't remember reading 10 women. I don't remember 10 women, but at least the four critical ones are this Vidya, who is a Tamil Brahmin from Delhi, Tamil Brahmin engineer who is earning well, and then there is Manju from Rampur, who is involved in home-based industry or home-based work. Then you have Gold, who is a character who has come from Rajasthan, like she has left her small town and came to Delhi, and she is trying to make it in the city, and she's also like fairly forward and very
She's also the air
she is
hostess,
also
right?
she's
Gold,
also
yeah.
the air
Gold is the
hostess.
air hostess,
Yeah,
yeah.
Gold. She's the air hostess who has found some new freedom by coming to a city like Delhi. And then you have Zahira, who is, she's from Ahmedabad, and she's also facing issues related to domestic abuse and all of that in her home. I'm sure that there are many other characters. I don't remember them, but these are the like four representative uh, people. I think, I don't know.
more than that, but yeah, I mean, 10 is, I remember reading in some part where it was numbers maybe a little here or there,
Yeah.
but across the classes there are at least 2-3 definitive voices
Yeah, I mean,
representing
in the
them all.
same while she's talking about these four women, there are also other women in the background. Like when she's talking about this Tamil Brahmin engineer Vidya, she's
There's a
also
school
talking
student.
about her school classmate
Yeah.
who is from South Delhi.
Who's
Yes.
Like,
called the student.
yeah, the
The
student
student, yes.
who is very rich and like. I mean, I feel these are the anchors, and around these anchors, there are other women who are also being explored. I mean, their story is being explored, and I mean, you did a very good job about explaining the broad themes, right? But from what I remember, I read it like almost 1.5 year back, I guess. But how I felt about the book, or how I would summarize it, is like it's a very consumable masala of personal memoirs, her personal relationship memoir, plus sociological research, plus an analysis, a critical analysis of Indian cinema, especially Bollywood, plus a social commentary of the rights of women, or the access or the freedom women have. And also there's a underlying subtext of what is love, like how love is being perceived in our mind and how it's being visualized, and how it's being experienced, and also the contradictions of love itself, the expectation and the reality. I think it's very easy to read this book no matter which background you're from, because there's element of everything here. And the fulcrum of it is Shah Rukh. Though we say it's an excuse, there is a section where she talks about the career of Shah Rukh Khan, and it was very educative for me as a Shah Rukh, Shah Rukh
Amateur.
agnostic. I was neither a hater nor a believer, so I'm a Shah Rukh agnostic. So for me, it was very educative because I could understand the career of this great, huge hero. And the other point which I wanted to make was, yeah. So when I read that part where she speaks about his career, I actually stopped reading and I went and watched 5 to 10 interviews of Shah Rukh Khan to actually understand, is he actually so witty, like is he having so much charm? Like I didn't know, because I've only seen 3 or 4 movies, and my own perception is based on Kuch Kuch Hoda Hai, Swadesh, and Chak
Chak
De
De
India, and maybe Om Shanti Om was one more movie I marginally liked, but I was never like a huge fan of it. So I was largely an agnostic. I mean, even today I feel I'm a Shah Rukh agnostic only. I mean, my fundamental nature about this cinematic thing has not changed, but I understand now. I get it. I get what the Shah Rukh fans are talking about. Um, yeah. So you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just wanted to add one point in the book where she's discussing. She has analyzed the number of minutes the female lead gets in Shah Rukh Khan's movies to
Yeah.
speak, right? And this was a mind-blowing thing for me. That she's actually engaging with something that we just take for granted. Like so she actually did this research on how many, like, the female leads in other movies, the other big Khans versus Shah Rukh Khan, right? And how much agency in terms of just dialogue these women have on the
Hmm.
screen. So I think all of these innovative ways of understanding data and presenting data is also a very good thing that this book does. Like it will spin your mind in a direction that you think, oh, this is also data, this is also data, and there's so much insight you can get from this. So I think that
Hmm.
was one very interesting point about the book.
Also about how much Shah Rukh's character engages with the female characters in the movie.
Hmm.
Um, the amount of time they speak, agency, I would say still questionable, because not all the women characters have that kind of agency in those movies, but it's still better. There is more, of course, amount of time that they have in terms of dialogues, but also the way his character interacts with the female character, because he is actively engaging with them. It's not like I am saying this and this is it. I am not going to just give you something to speak and come and go back, but I am actively going to engage with what you're saying, and I'm going to respond to that, and I want to listen to you, and I will emote and I will speak to you. So that it's there is this part where they, I think she says that it was one of the characters who says how about different actors, but about when it comes to Shah Rukh, they say Shah Rukh sees us.
Yes.
To be seen itself in a Bollywood movie is a huge ask, because that has not happened for the longest of time. How much ever you try, it's not satisfying enough. But the fact that there is one guy who's there to save you, there is one guy who's there to protect you, but there is one guy who sees you, and that makes, I think, the world of a difference for all these women who like him for that. So
I think that also brings us to the feelings which we went through while reading this, right? I mean, for me, uh, I was like, okay, am I reading someone's diary, or am I reading the editorial in the Hindu, or am I reading some, critical tweets on Twitter? Like I was moving from one thing to another thing, and I was also like wondering, am I reading the analysis of a film reviewer? Like I'm jumping from one paradigm to another paradigm, with from one chapter to another chapter. But what kept me hooked was that there's some gossip. The element of gossip is also there, and also my own judgy view of these women. Because see, I'm no qualms in saying that I do the huge mistake of applying logic in a romantic setup, which always never ends well. I know both of you are laughing. I think I found refuge in logic. I did not have that freedom, I guess, but that is for my therapy session. So, being a very person who is devoted to logic to a point of fault, I mean, my reading experience was like there was a sarcastic voice in my head,
I
like,
can
"Oh,
imagine.
what is this bullshit?" Kind of a expression running in my head. But also it was an educative experience, right? So a large majority of women like Shah Rukh Khan, and I have no clue why. I mean, I was not so curious to know why also, but it was an educative experience, like what you said about being seen. Like there's this phrase which floats around everywhere, seen and heard. Like I'm like I'm seeing you, I'm hearing you. What is the big deal here? But obviously that's a very crude way of looking at it. But I finally understood what it means to be seen and heard. It's like and since I'd not seen a large number of Bollywood movies, I'm not able to relate to what you guys are saying. Like in other movies, the woman is being saved, like she's very passive and she's doing nothing, and either the hero is pursuing her, then there's a villain who comes and abducts, then this guy goes and saves, and then there's a happy ending, etc., etc. And what you're saying is in a Shah Rukh movie, it's like there's more agency for the woman. She's not just a passive receiver of love and protection, but she's also actively communicating what she wants from this equation. Like what are her wishes? Like there's some scene where she that heroine asks, "Are you a human or a monkey?" And this guy asks, "What do you like?" Like तुम आदमी हो या बंदर तुझे क्या पता. I mean, I didn't, sorry if I destroyed it, but that this I see an element of agency over there, right? Like he's trying to understand what she likes, rather than just imposing his protection and love. Like sometimes they don't want, the woman doesn't want it, like why is it being offered to her? I mean, hypothetically. So I was able to finally understand where this thing is coming from, and I also understood that he is not just another actor. Like he's very aware of what is the public pulse, and he's also having his own thoughts as well, and he knows how to present these thoughts in a very articulate manner. I mean, I appreciate Shah Rukh more for being an articulate speaker and a well-read guy rather than an actor or how he is appearing in his movies, which might, obviously you are laughing at it. That appeals to me. So, I mean, how was your feeling as you read it? Like from a perspective of fan and also as an academic, of someone who has studied this. What was your, you would have like two different viewpoints merging, right?
Yeah, I think it was really interesting because you can pick up on these various elements that that are doing rounds in your academics, but you see it coming together in this book.
Mm.
So there is this one part where there is one phase, I think between 2014 and where he's not doing as many movies. He's doing more experimental stuff. He did Fan, he did Zero and stuff like that. And it just kind of made me very actually I went and watched Zero, okay, and I watched it twice because I liked it so much.
Okay, I have a thought on Zero, but yeah,
Yeah.
please finish.
So I went and it was just engaging with it academically was really really fun in that sense because um, again this this minutes thing happened, and how Shah Rukh Khan's identity as a Muslim affects what he does, what kind of movies he's picking up, what kind of reception he's getting from people. And I think this was all all came to the surface when he did Pathan and Jawan, right? So, this guy who is actively a Muslim person and who has raised questions on authority and has been penalized for it. There has been punitive action against him, against his son. They have been dragged through mud for, I don't know, I think just being a Muslim and just trying to be a celebrity and raising a voice, which is a very big, I know, very big deal in India. Like, people in Hollywood probably have more spine with respect to that. But in Bollywood, it's simply unimaginable for anyone to voice that. Anyone who tries to go against the regime, they kind of get boycotted, and there are refugees burning and all of that. So I think the way Shah Rukh navigated all of that, being the person he is, his identity as a Muslim man, his identity as a romantic hero, his identity as this lover boy, and also an action hero in the later, just to please certain demographics and all of that. It was very interesting to see that the movies that are that in which he plays this action hero kind of a thing didn't do so well on the box office because the women couldn't connect with it. And all of this major demographic of movies that Shah Rukh does is appreciated and loved by women because of this, being seen, being heard, right? Which is not the same as listening to someone. It is hearing someone, to hear them properly, like, to understand. So I think that was really, from an academic point of view, as you said, right, logic in relationships is kind of a funny thing. But in academics, you get to do that, right? You get to rationalize these emotions into certain schemas and then analyze these schemas. And how they depict a social picture of this particular socio-cultural milieu, and what it represents, what this icon represents. So I think that was a really fun part about the book. You get to pick apart emotions of multiple people, pick apart on emotional things, apply logic in ways that you think, and still kind of appreciate the tenderness of these relationships that people have with this star. So yeah, I think that was something really fun that I did.
Isn't it sad that his experimental movies failed? I mean, like, fun fact, I heard somewhere that Rajnikant never does experimental movies because he already knows his fan likes a certain trope, and he keeps doing that again and again, and his movies somehow make money. I think last one was not so successful.
Jailer, right?
I don't know.
Jailer
I didn't.
was
Yeah,
Stopped
but
following.
the thing is, his daughter or his daughter, I think, she reviews the script, and if it doesn't fit into his persona, it's rejected apparently. But I think for some amount of time, I liked Amir Khan more because he did more of this experimental stuff,
Yeah.
which appealed to the snob in me. And
We've
Shah
been
Rukh
there.
Khan didn't really, apart from Swadesh and Chak De, I was never really appreciative of any of his other works. Um, but yeah, what about your Bency's feeling about, like, obviously you had a coming out of the closet moment, but in addition to that, you would also probably reflect on your interaction with the men, right? Like, did you have any thoughts running in your head while you were reading this?
Um, yeah, I will come to that, but just two thoughts on the experimental part and how it has worked or not worked for him. Fortunately or unfortunately, Shah Rukh, I mean, he's spoken about this, about how he actually wanted to do action movies. He came into this industry, he wanted to have those six packs, he's spoken about it in those many words. He said that I wanted to have, a gun in my hand, I wanted to just come and hit someone and just, like a typical action packed sequence. That's what he wanted to do. But then he comes and then he is pulled into a very different direction. He's done movies like Dar, and wherever he's this playing the anti-hero, not even anti-hero, proper villain. But then you have Aditya Chopra telling him how, these eyes are not something that have to be wasted on action movies.
Yes.
And he, so I can imagine what situation that must have been, because you know that this is what you want to do, but somehow the entire country, the world wants to see you romancing.
Hmm.
So that's how that entire branch of romance in Bollywood sort of stemmed in the 90s with him just doing these kind of movies. The experimental phase, of course, with him doing Zero, Fan, and those 2-3 movies in that time, after which he stopped. And
Yes.
he's spoken about how he stopped also because these movies didn't work. My thing with Zero was that it's a movie that you said that you watched it twice. I actually couldn't finish it. I walked out of the theater. And that was the only time, of course, that time I was still in the closet, so I could do it. Maybe today I won't be able to. But I could not watch it. I watched a couple of scenes and I thought it was sad the way Anushka was acting in it, the way Shah Rukh was saying things, the way Katrina. I was like, this is not making sense at all. Um, but of course, these movies didn't work. Fan, he says, is one of the movies. I haven't seen it, but it's one of his favorite movies of his own also. But so all of these didn't work, and then finally the foray into your Pathan Jawan universe, where he has finally decided to abandon what the masses may want because that's what he wanted all along, and now finally he's at that point in his career where he's chosen to take these movies. But Pathan, of course, was also accepted with open arms because people were so done not having an SRK movie for so many
Yes.
years that finally when Pathan came, everybody was like, we are going to ensure that this is a hit because we love you. So that was the and the second thing about the whole Muslim identity bit, it was an irony, and he mentioned how My Name is Khan, when he did, he said, I was so sick of being seen as a terrorist that I had to go and make a movie about it. And still, when I was going to the US for a premiere of this movie, I was stopped. So that I think was a phase of his activism era. Then he went silent, which was not taken very well by a lot of women in the country, especially from the Muslim community, where they thought he ought to have spoken. That's a very different conversation about expecting your role models to, or yeah, sort of expecting them to take on the onus and responsibility to speak on these matters. If they shouldn't, or if they should be held to that kind of accountability, is a very different conversation. But there was an activist era when he did all of that, smoking your Wankhede problems. But then of course now he's in a very, I see him now in all those political events that happen. He's gracing all those occasions very
Yeah.
comfortably. So I think things have sort of shifted now, where maybe after a certain point you just want some calm and
Peace.
don't want to get into these things.
No, that also shows how like India is a very, contradictory. Like you can't understand India at all because 90s and that era was like so communally charged. But still, I think the stardom of Shah Rukh was on the rise during that period, like mid 90s, 2000. Like, of course, there were so many events going on during that period, and there's a stark difference between people's entertainment choice and their political choices, right? Like these days, people say personal is political, but I think an average Indian citizen has so many, contradictions in his or her mind. At any given point of time, they can probably be a fan of Shah Rukh Khan and also some fan of some right-wing politician. I mean, that kind of cognitive dissonance is. I don't know. I noticed it very actively because I noticed there are Gujaratis who who are fans of Mahatma Gandhi and also
Sardar Patel.
not Sardar Patel. They are
Godse.
fans of Gandhi and
Godse.
Godse
Yeah.
at the same time, or probably that kind of an ideology which is opposed to Gandhi. So there is a lot of cognitive dissonance you can't understand, and I have stopped trying to understand it. Um, I think obviously you didn't answer my question. You
Yes,
actually
yes.
went.
No, so the feelings or the things that went through my head when I was reading it was, I think, as I mentioned earlier, absolute relatability. Because I think not just in terms of the romantic love aspect, because in my head I think I am Shah Rukh Khan when it comes to falling in love, because that's my idea of being in love. Which
What is that idea, by the way?
absolute devotion. I think you just have to see him in any of these movies. To give you an example, this because this is again very, you may think who does this, but this is also something that comes up in the book when a person says, uh, I think a similar question was posed to her as to what is this love that is so attractive to you that Shah Rukh does. And she says in this movie Rab Ne Bana Di Jodi, which is, I had to plug it, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. There is this entire sequence that is filmed where, because he is madly in love with his wife, she is not in the same place, but he is. And an entire sequence shot where he takes the food that she prepares for him, and this woman is telling the author that only if you have a man in your life, if your husband is actually looking at the food and just being so considerate about the food that you've packed for him, that is enough, right? Because it's such a mundane thing. It's such a, okay, I can see that you're not very appreciative of this feeling,
No, I
but
have some comments which I will obviously share after you finish.
yeah, so I feel, because that's love. That's you are not really thinking about whether the person is giving that to you in return. In an ideal world, that's how it should be, but more often than not, it's not the case. So then, but still, the ability for you to love with all your heart, and with that kind of devotion where you're like, no, whatever that person requires is my top priority. Very selfless kind of an emotion where you put yourself after the person. Yeah.
Another plug will be Om Shanti Om, where Shanti is this
No, no,
inaccessible
wait.
actress.
I just have something to say about this Rabne Banadi Jodi. I mean, what the
Tread
fuck are you
carefully,
guys?
Nitesh.
Yeah, I will tread carefully, but what is this movie trying to communicate? That, it is borderline promoting an extramarital relationship, right? So, wait, just hear me out. Obviously, there's an element of fantasy here. So, there's a woman, she has married a ordinary looking guy who's not so exciting. Okay, but there is another guy who is probably a replica of her husband. Like in her eyes, he's a new guy who is like more, jazzy, and like he's vibrant and he's having all this aura around him. So she finds that more attractive than a devoted husband who is looking at the dish and worshipping it. I mean, this is my perception, this memory of, I have seen this long back. I just remember the storyline. And finally, there's a last scene where she realizes, oh, this jazzy guy is my husband. Wow, awesome. I'm so surprised. Wow, this is love. You're saying this is love? I mean, to hell with love, seriously. Then.
No, so just some clarifications here.
Uh,
She is not in love with the jazzy guy.
then why
That
is she
happens,
going?
no, that happens much later. Surinder Sani is your typical ordinary everyday guy. Agreed. The circumstances in which she is married to him is critical, because she was in love with somebody she was to get married to, but then there is this whole thing in the beginning of the movie that happens where the father is unwell, and she, because of circumstances, is put in a situation where she has to get married to this guy.
Hmm.
Now imagine at a time when you're almost getting married to a person that you love, and then having to suddenly get married to somebody else because of your dying father's wish or something that has happened. So there's a huge adjustment angle here, right? The guy is great, the guy is perfect, but she is not in the place right now to think of love, because she is in love with somebody. You can't just overnight shift things. That is one aspect. The jazzy guy comes in, she is extremely put off by the jazzy guy.
Yes.
It's when, so Surinder Sani is not your emotive guy. That's also where the problem is. He is not confessing, he is not openly expressing his love for her. It's only the jazzy guy who does it. And that's how, because it's of course the same guy as we all know, he thinks as a different person he can be that expressive because he is in front of her, not the husband. So that's why he is emoting, being very expressive, which ultimately she reaches a point where she thinks, okay, this guy really loves me so much. And of course, there's a whole arc to it where she also falls in love with the guy, but she is very aware of the fact that there is a husband in her life. So it's
Yeah.
not promoting extramarital. I think we all know that love outside of marriage does happen in real life. Whether you act on
Agreed.
it or not is a
Yeah, and
different
she's in a
question.
very real moral dilemma. Like she's like, I should
Wait.
stop contact.
See, I do understand. Like, I only know the broad, simplistic summary of that movie because I'm not. I don't. First of all, I don't remember the exact details which you mentioned. Uh, and I just remember the broad summary of it, which it's even after you gave the explanation, I find it revolting. Because okay, you're emotionally unavailable. Alright, it's your father's dying wish, then why should an innocent man suffer for this? Like, what if she actually, okay, alternatively, if this jazzy guy was actually some other guy, and finally she, divorced and left the husband and went to this guy, then what the fuck is love then? Why was he staring at the dish and, being devoted, etc., etc.? Yeah, I mean, I understand this is not a movie review, but I that is one of the reasons why I'm not able to, appreciate these movies to the extent that others can.
But I think just coming back to the entire idea of being devotion, like being devoted,
Hmm.
being devoted to your beloved is something that Shah Rukh does really well. Because I will plug in Om Shanti Om
Yeah.
here, because he is this unattainable.
Hmm.
Usko he knows that he cannot attain her, this, but he still loves her. And there's this scene where nobody's jumping in the fire, and he goes that
Shanti.
अगर उस आग में शांति होगी तो मैं बार बार उस आग में कूदूंगा.
Yeah.
And even Shanti is like, who is this guy and why is he doing this for me? Which kind of, propels her in a particular direction. So I think this idea of being devoted is something that women would want and never get because the market of men is so bad. Like, it's just so terrible at this point that, men have these hyper masculine expectations that मेरे को action hero बनना, gym bro बनना है, bro मैं protein shake पी के ऐसे एकदम दुनिया उखाड़ दूंगा. But women are craving that vulnerability and point of,
Fragile.
they don't want men to be he-men. They just want them to be vulnerable human beings that are, engaging with them in a conversation. They say there's a common trope, right? Husband आया office से थक के बात भी नहीं करी सो गया, and this wife is like, the lunchbox as a movie, for example. It doesn't have Shah Rukh, but that's the kind of point I'm trying to make. So having that devotion is something that Shah Rukh does really well.
I
And he
understand.
cries. That being just what she said, right? Because a lot of the actors in that time, in a lot of I can see is. But what you are clinging on to and what you are aspiring for, it's not that the women in this book are not aware that these are unattainable. They know that because from experience they know this doesn't exist. The kind of men they have seen and they have been stuck with are the absolute worst. So
Yeah.
in that sense, what you're aspiring for, even when you know it's unreal, it's just that's just how you escape from your reality, because here is a guy who is crying, who is speaking to you, who's looking at you like you are the world, which, let me assure you, does happen in real life. It does happen, it can happen, may not happen for everyone. I think, I mean, it's both fortunate and unfortunate if you're in that situation, because it's a very helpless and overwhelming situation,
Yeah.
right? But that here is a guy who's showing that all of this is possible, and therefore you want to escape into that.
I mean, that brings me to the wide range of social classes which have been explored and also absorbed into this Shah Rukh fandom, right? Which I find it very surprising because first of all, I was not even aware of what is the depth and breadth of this Shah Rukh, fandom, and also like I also haven't interacted with women from different strata of society and what is their expectation, etc., etc. But it's really surprising that this individual and his acting and his characters have resonated with women of all social strata, right? And it's very interesting. And also it gives us the opportunity to talk about state of women in different social hierarchies or social strata, cutting across caste, religion, rural, urban, and also the independent and dependent. And also it goes into issues like domestic violence and all of those things, right? So that, I mean, like it's very rare for a book to cover so much depth, or so much of a vast array of identities. And also it's very rare for a single actor to appeal to all the vast arrays of those identities. And there must be something universal about what this guy is doing on the screen, right? So otherwise, uh, you know my whole question to both of you is, if this is so unattainable, and there are some people who would probably not, I don't know, entertain or even accept uh, anything below this. Let's say this unattainable is the only thing you expect. Don't you think it's also kind of a self-sabotaging thought? Because every man cannot be like Shah Rukh Khan. Like, I mean, he might not be able to attain this kind of high standard or whatever it is.
So I will just ask you on that. When you say high standard, what exactly is this high standard? What do you think is a man not capable of?
No, my question comes from the place where, I mean, funnily, I don't want to mock her for it, but the author is still unable to find a man like Shah Rukh, right? Or even her own personal choices have been diametrically opposite to what Shah Rukh would have done. So there seems to be some sort of cognitive dissonance. Let's say, okay, the other woman talked about in this book, sorry, the one who is living in the village, one who is living in poor neighborhoods of Ahmedabad, or someone like that air hostess was not having many choices. Like, unlike all these other characters from disadvantaged backgrounds, the author is fully having all the privileges, right? And still she's unable to find a person worth living with. So my I feel that there is also a subset of people who are having like unreasonable expectations, and probably that is the self-sabotaging strategy, I guess.
I would like to respond to that. So, first of all, the standards that women are held to are extremely crazy.
Huh.
And there is one standard that a man is supposed to hold, and they are going bonkers over it. ये शाहरुख खान जैसा प्यार हमसे नहीं होता, ठीक है? Brother, you don't emote, you don't cry, you don't have the agency or any other emotion in you other than anger, right? It is not a very big standard, to be honest, because when you just break down to the basics, it's being a good listener, just accepting the woman as she is, right, and listening to her problems and helping her out of it without you coming in like a savior scooping you. Bhai औरत को पता भी नहीं तुम कौन, मैं hero, let's go, right? No, I think when you break down the basics of it, it's pretty simple. It's a very simple, very primal need to be understood. And as men, they love to dismiss women, they love to dismiss emotions, they love to dismiss romance, because for them, being macho and protecting their masculinity is way more important than actually engaging with another human being like a decent fucking person. So I think it's not a very big standard, that it has been blown out of proportion, right? Women are held to, women must be thin, women must be fair skinned, women must behave like this, women should not go speak to other men, women should stay in the house, women should work, women should not work, women should have 2 children, women should have 10 children. All of these standards women are being put up with every day, right? And one standard comes in for men, and and all hell breaks loose. So first of all, it's not a very big standard that he represents. Other thing is also why someone wants something is coming from a place of lack. It is actually a symptom in society why women are gravitating towards this icon of Shah Rukh and what his character represents, right? If, like, let's say if a woman, someone who has been loved right, let's say, they'll find Shah Rukh's character to be silly. They'll be like, "Ye kya kar raha hai? This is harassment," right? So, and which is true also. I'm not saying that it is not harassment. I'm not condoning stuff he has done in his movies, but the whole idea that other men are so busy, like, Amir is for the brain and Salman is for the body, Shah Rukh is for the soul, right?
Oh, that is interesting.
So it's something, it's not a very big standard. As women, I will personally say for myself, I've gone to extreme lengths for absolutely useless men, like, who don't deserve an iota of my attention, but I have done so much for them to hear such cruel things being said to me. It's not a standard that is not there. It is not a standard that women don't do for men, right? It's just that when fingers are pointed towards men, they get all defensive and like, no, humse nahi ho payega. All women are delusional. It is again going back to the same key. Women are too emotional. They think from their uteruses and ovaries, and they don't really. They all need hysterectomies. They would rather have a lobotomized servant than a woman. So I think it's the biggest problem with this idea is that Shah Rukh is not representing an unreal standard. When you really break it down to the basics. Of course, nobody is expecting you to fly like a superhero and become G1 and just doing all of that. No, nobody is asking you to jump off the roof of trains. No, the essence of it is to be loved like a person, right? And not like, I was being called a dishwasher today. So, not as a dishwasher, right? So, in that sense, I think, I can continue with this rant, but over to you, Bency.
No, and I think that's why I asked you that question, because to my mind, this is a very basic ask. Like she said, it's not about you doing some supernatural elements, you performing some stunts in the air, no, or you singing and dancing in the street. While you could do that once in a while, I wouldn't say no to that, but that's not what you're asking for. You're asking to be heard. Now, you don't have those problems if you ask women who have a close net of female friends. You will see them having the kind of bond that it's the same bond that you want from a man for someone who's interested in men. But that's something that's lacking, right? You're not getting that, which is why this has become such a huge aspiration and has been for many years. And you see this cutting across generations of women also. It's not just the younger ones. You have people in these stories also where they've said, my mother really approves of this character. Why? Because in DDLJ, he chooses to speak to the women in Simran's family. He has gone into the kitchen, he's cutting vegetables with them, he's helping one person pick a sari, and he is doing Karwa Chauth with her. Karwa Chauth is a very different conversation again, not commenting on that. But it's the fact that you are seen as an equal partner. Now that is not a big ask. If you have a guy in your life, you have a man who's actually acting just like him when it comes to giving you the space, hearing you out, treating you as an equal partner in this equation, and actually cares about what you have to say, I think your requirement is met. You're not really asking for the stars here. So,
yeah, and even in Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum, he's standing up to his parents. Okay, the movie is drama, but the ask is basic. His love interest is disrespected, and he takes a stand against it. Simple. Many men, 99% of men won't do that. They won't take a stand. Yeah. So it's just, all of these movies, it's a very basic, at the core of it, these are very simple, basic wants.
And mind you, these are things that I have personally also seen, and I'm sure Nikita will agree. We have seen many women take these stands in their lives. When you put a woman in the same position, all the things that men are incapable of doing, women are more than happy to do it for love. Now you may think it's irrational or it's way too much to ask, oh, just for love, I don't understand love. No, if you really care, you want to be with the person, and if you really understand the depth of what you are really engaging with, I feel you can do that only if you yourself are,
Mm.
that broad internally. I don't think you can expand beyond a point, right? Unless you have the capacity to sort of love that way. So if you
Yeah,
lack that, then
I mean that passionate, talk actually clarifies a lot of things. I mean, my only problem was, asking someone to be what they are not. My problem is not with the issue of emoting, taking a stand, hearing, listening, treating a person as an equal. I think what I was trying to say was someone can't be a person they are not. I mean, that was my broad point, and of course, all of my problems, originate from that point. But point taken, like, I mean, whatever this guy is doing is not like unreasonable for any man to do. I mean, the whole point was I can't become someone I'm not. So that was the core issue over there. Um, I think among these four, uh, I mean, we talked about those four individuals who are being tracked. Their life is being used as a tool to, talk about the Shah Rukh fandom, and also several metrics related to women's participation in the economy, society, their freedoms, which are also abstract, which can't be captured in statistics or economics. And I mean, if you see the trend over the years, it seems like these statistics will only, you know, further worsen. It seems like that. I mean, like, I don't know. What are your thoughts about it? Is it so hopeless? Even if you, I mean, setting aside the Shah Rukh fandom and all of that, if you look at economics and the sociological aspect of it, is it like a hopeless scenario, or is there any hope?
You want
I
to go first?
I think in terms of figures, like some of the things that blew my mind apart from the whole middle income group was about the labor force participation, where it said that it was for women it was above 30% in the 1990s, which by 2020 was at 18.6%. And when you look at these stories also, you see how when we spoke of access, your ability to earn or you being financially independent plays such a big role in you being able to access these things that give you happiness, right? So but this whole 2020 figure and seeing that it has actually dropped when around you somehow, maybe because also we are in this bubble, and so we just think of it in that vacuum. You see people around you, there are so many women in your workplace, you think maybe that's the case, but then you look at the figures and you understand that that's not really the case. So, not that I would want to be a pessimist, but if you look at the figures, it's extremely bleak. So yeah, I'm not sure where we are going from here.
Yeah, I think I think I also hold this, like, of course statistics are there. Also, I want to just bring in the kind of shift in cinema. There are no romance movies anymore. It's all this hyper nationalist jingoist things that come up, and or some random comedies like Bhool Bhulaiya 3 or whatever, right? Like there's no, like, every 90s kid is like, bring back real Bollywood, and all of that stuff is going on. Sorry. So with respect to economics of movie going as well, let's see where it goes. I don't know if I have the figures or not, but yeah, I think I agree with Bensi on that.
I think in terms of movie going also, there was some figure about how it's as of at least 2015, 8% of adult women were going to theaters once a month, as opposed to 22% when it comes to men.
Mm.
So even movie going as a recreational activity, there is such a huge disparity. So how do you even enjoy that when even in these public spaces the disparity is so much?
But as far as movies are concerned, I think it's mostly moving to the OTTs and all of that. But I mean, that's a different conversation. But I mean, broadly speaking, politically, which I see a very major trend is all these parties are trying to give freebies to women to get women's votes, right? Like, I mean, I'm not complaining against it. It's more of a observation of the political trends. So, because women are probably not participating in the labor force, they're not having their own income. So the political system is probably giving them some incentives to give them a vote because
A lot of those freebies, at least from what I know in Jayalalitha's time and all, were your mixer grinders and things like that. So again, you are not
now it's
really
more of a direct cash thing, right? Like,
if that cash does
and
directly reach you, that is.
yeah, so it happened in Karnataka, then I think it started with Madhya Pradesh, then Karnataka, then Maharashtra, and now again Delhi as well. Um, I mean, that is just a passing remark, which I don't know how it's related to the labor force participation or importance of women or whatever it is. But one thing I have personally heard a lot because I'm from Karnataka and there were like 50, they made bus rides free for women in Karnataka, part of their five big freebies. Like, I don't know to what extent it's a valid complaint, but a lot of guys, especially men, say they're not at all getting seat in buses because it is completely occupied by women, which I find it very strange. Because I mean, I probably have not traveled by bus as much after the election, but I think I don't know. There's also a pushback when you try to give some, at least some basic or even some marginal benefits to women. I don't know. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, first of all, I have a problem with this term freebies, okay?
Hmm.
Indirect tax is paid by every citizen of this country, first of all, right?
Hmm.
So it's not that it's completely free,
Hmm.
right? Second thing is, I don't see it as freebies, I see it as affirmative action, like having, like in Delhi, having that Delhi metro dabba for women is necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
It's a necessity.
I personally have been groped in the Delhi metro, right? And I'm very thankful that a female dabba exists, and I will like go down fighting for death for that dabba. Like men shouldn't be allowed in public spaces first of all, right? But the idea that anything, any marginal benefit that women gets, it's met with a backlash. Even when you talk about getting cash or anything, like all of these self-help groups and everything, it's like women are. Studies prove that women are more prudent spenders of the family. They are the ones who allocate resources and everything, and that आदमी जाएगा खेत पे दारू पिएगा घर आके बीवी को पीटेगा, right? That's the only paradigm that they are. And I'm not painting a one-dimensional picture. It is across geographies, across classes, across castes. So it's not even like it's almost universal. So whenever there is barely any affirmative action towards women or towards any marginalized communities, men are the first one to raise their voices, right? As if the world is not revolving as per them, right? I have had people asking me in job interview questions, when are you planning to get married? Hiring decisions depend on such questions.
These days, these are mandatory also. If you're doing it via any other portal, you
Yeah.
are required. I tried skipping some of these questions, but you're required to answer if you're single, married. How does it matter?
Exactly. But so now this entire idea of why labor force participation is dropping is because the country is not conducive to women's labor. The only labor women engage in is unpaid, unproductive labor at home for which they are not paid. And all of this, if we actually put when we use time use surveys, when we see all of these analysis done on the kind of, if you put a monetary value on these tasks, no man can afford a wife, okay? So I think it is grim, and the current political economic scenario of the country, today's budget also kind of seemed like a very compensatory kind of a thing for middle class voters, because they know I will lose out on a huge block
Elections.
of voters. They got like a backlash from the masses because of the previous budget, and also I think it's very important to keep the larger picture in view when we are discussing all of these schemes, when we are discussing labor force participation. भाई लो है, हाँ है, क्यों है, उसकी वजह कौन है, उसकी वजह क्या है, right? Every woman I have met with, they want to work, they want to earn money, they are desperate, they're like desperately searching for work. There's no work. right? You can't do night shifts, security issue, right? You can't do a certain kind of work, women are not, it is not for women to do, right? So these gendered roles, these gendered ideas of work and labor also play a very important role in what you get to access. Like, you know, मूवी देखने जा रहे हो, ये मूवी देखने क्यों जाना है, राइट? किसके साथ जा रही हो, है ना? क्यों अंधेरे में क्यों देखना है मूवी? Something as simple as why are you locking the damn door of your own house, of your own room, right? So it's crazy that way.
Even this women, sorry, just on that point of women who want to work, that's also a very very small segment who are allowed to work, because there is a whole different section where even if they're seeking that financial independence, you are not permitted to, because multiple stories you hear of in your own personal life also, where you know women, as soon as they start college, first second year हुआ नहीं, and you start getting rishtas, and because your ultimate aim is to settle down, is to get to be married off to somebody you are done with, and then there is obviously no scope to study, to work. So this is also a privileged section, where privileged, or the other end also, where there is no other way, because your husband is of course whatever using, wasting away the money, so you have to somehow get resources into the house, and therefore you have to work, where it is okay. Otherwise, this other section where it's, you are given the liberty to work. So
I mean, I find all of this. I mean, it's I'm not aware of this because, like, I'm brought up by a single mother who ran her own business. She put through to me and my brother through college, and like, she's a very powerful entity in my universe. So I've still not seen any. Because everyone, even my aunt and my cousin sister, like they wield disproportionate power,
I'm
which
happy.
Yeah.
in my
Somewhere.
house. So like even the shirt I'm supposed to wear, I have to get approvals. So I mean, I have
Probably the like you're part of that very very tiny minority. You're probably the
exactly.
only guy in this country who needs to do that, where a majority of the women
Yeah,
have to
it's
get these approvals.
yeah, it's very. I mean, I understand like it's a very rare thing to have, which is also probably why I'm unable to relate to many of the things which both of you are speaking about. Um, I mean, I wanted to say this, but I don't know. I missed that point where it could have been said. Maybe I'll find one more hook where I can talk about it. I mean, coming back to the star, the hero, the Shah Rukh Khan, right? Like all the women are having so many expectations, and
I thought
not
that was sorted.
that
I
was
think
sorted.
we were on the same
No, no,
page.
no, not sort. Okay, did we already discuss that? Fine.
Where you said that okay, not unfair expectation, it's bare minimum.
You shouldn't
Now
be
I'm
somewhere
slightly
where-
putting words in your mouth, but it was somewhere on those
Yes.
Yeah,
lines.
somewhat. Yeah, it was more about being the guy whom you can't be, or something of that. I mean, like as you said, there was something you said. There's a void, and that is one of the reasons why Shah Rukh became such a huge presence in the minds of the fans and all of that, right? I also feel that even in spite of that, like we have a huge hunger for fans because we have multiple deficiencies. I mean, is it fair to have that kind of an expectation from your heroes, or like they have to speak out on this, they have to do this, they have to do that? Oh, why did he do that endorsement? He should have skipped it. Like, I mean, is it fair to have such expectations?
So I am not a fan of anything per se. Like I don't belong to any fandom per se. So in the end, so like for example in Shah Rukh, he tried and he got such a lashing for what he said and what he did, and like you know even Amir, when he tried to speak about it, there's such a public backlash to it, and in the end it's business, right? So anything that hurts business is not good for you, right? I don't know. I'm still divided on whether they should be the moral spokesperson of the populace. I don't know. I don't. I think they should like मेरे सोचने से क्या होता है I think that Shah Rukh should speak about these different things, but whether or not he wants to, whether or not he should is not, something we can expect things from them, but they're too high up to actually care about it, right? And also I think with respect to this void, we love as a society deifying people. We love to create heroes. We love to create heroes out of nowhere, and we also love this idea of heroes will come to save us, because nobody wants to take personal accountability for things, for changing things. They believe that a hero will come, solve all their problems and go away. When it comes to civic rights, when it comes to citizens duties to the nation, how many of us do that, right? We just believe some political hero will come, solve our problems and go, which is why we love these movies, right? Someone will come, solve our problems, we will just sit there, do nothing, magically problem solved, and we go. I think so this is also like a symptom of this kind of um, lack of accountability, both moral and civic, in terms of who we are as people, as people of India, right? I can't speak for other countries. मैं नेपाल भी नहीं गई हूँ foreign travel के नाम पे, but I think this idea is that this need for deification comes from the fact that we don't want to take responsibility as citizens, as individuals, for things that we want to do in life. So, is it good? Is it bad? We don't know. I don't know, but it exists, and we navigate around it best ways possible. That's my only takeaway from it.
It's like outsourcing the responsibility to
Yes,
someone
the hero will
else.
solve.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think on the question of whether or not we should hold them as as you rightly put it, moral spokesperson. Again, I am also on the fence, because there is a big part of me that feels that Shah Rukh is there as an actor. He The only loyalty he has is towards his craft. That's what he's supposed to do. Come on this huge screen, sway everyone, and just dance, sing, perform, go away. Right? You're back home, 3 hours entertainment, you're done. After you're back, you read about some crazy political situation happening in your country, and I sometimes I don't feel it's fair for me to expect, oh, he needs to come out and speak about this, because one, not his job, two, no need. There are way too many people who are looking into this, and he is not here for that. That's not his function. But there are moments where I also feel that, oh, you do owe something to these huge masses, right? Who are really looking up to you, and literally looking up to Mannat on certain days of the year, because you hold that kind of place in so many people's lives, and you saying a word or two on this might give people some solace. But then again, it comes with so much responsibility, because you also, from his perspective, he needs to also continue to operate in the industry, right? There are political forces here which are powerful. He's also powerful, but there are other powerful forces that can sort of come in the way of his own growth. So now he's beyond that stage now, of course. uh, but again, do you want to put that kind of a responsibility on them is something I'm not too sure on. But I think we are always right there when they do or don't do some things, to call them out and say, oh, we need to cancel this person because now he's not doing this. But how much of it is really their responsibility, I am not too sure, because I don't feel convinced about either situation. I think it's a very subjective thing also, because if it's a matter that's very close to my heart, I might feel, oh, why are these people not talking about it who I expected good things from? If it's an issue I don't think too much about, maybe I'll be like, okay, it's not his job. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the fundamental thing is the star is also a human, and the person is also doing. We may think, okay, this person represents all these things, but since he's a human, like he or she is a human, they will also be making some mistakes, whether it was done with malice or it was a natural human mistake. We can't say. I mean, then all the values which you had propped up on this person, it suddenly collapses. And I mean, we've spoken about such a wide range of things, right? Like from books, movies, politics, culture, economics, so many things. But I think the whole book was probably, you know, anchored on that idea of love, or what it means to women and why they're not finding it. Um, I mean, like I do want to share this quote from this book called Art of Loving by Eric Fromm, which I read. I read so many things in this book, but I only remember one quote. That is how it goes with so many books. It says, most people see the problem of love primarily as that of being loved rather than that of loving, of one's capacity to love. Hence, the problem to them is how to be loved, how to be lovable. In pursuit of this aim, they follow several paths. One which is especially used by men is to be successful, to be as powerful and rich and as the social margin of one's position permits. Another used by women is to make oneself attractive by cultivating one's body, dress, etc. Other ways of making oneself attractive, used both by men and women, are to develop pleasant manners, interesting conversation, to be helpful, modest, inoffensive. Many of the ways to make oneself lovable are same as those used to make oneself successful, to win friends and influence people. As a matter of fact, what most people in our culture mean by being lovable is essentially a mixture of being popular and having sex appeal. I mean, it's sort of, I don't know. Maybe I should put this in the notes. People should read this multiple times because it's there's this huge void between wanting to be loved and being lovable. I mean, it's also came out in our conversation, right? Like, such a huge clash between these two contradictory things, and it's only art and books and conversations with like this which sort of bridge that gap. And I think Shah Rukh Khan is like, he's probably teaching some people how they want to be loved, and it's also probably is trying to indirectly says like how to be loving. I mean, like, those were my thoughts, and if you have some final closing thoughts on this, you should share those.
I think I'll just read something from the book that really spoke to me. And like I said, multiple moments where because there was this constant feeling of relatability throughout the book, but this is something which I think sort of sums it up. So she says, Khan can conjure up a gaze of romantic devotion unlike any other human on celluloid. With all his romantic might, he gazes at the magnificence of his lover, his eyes tearful with joy and spiritual satisfaction. Shah Rukh's gaze is soppy and ridiculous to the rational sensibility, but you don't care. Because that look is not one of condescension, not where a woman is seen as a troublesome burden or a debt recovery instrument or an object of lust, a silent, uncomplaining outlet for male carnality. In all his films, even when he plays it cool or attacks female dignity, he spares a moment in the song sequences to unleash that trademark gaze. He looks at his lovers with a remarkable register of adulation and admiration, a spiritual and bodily embrace you have never actually experienced. So I think that sort of sums up why he is such a huge aspiration. Because you're very aware of how unreal and ridiculous it may sound, but because of the huge void that actually exists, the huge gap that exists in what reality is and what you really would like to have, he speaks to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think more men should read this book than women, because for women it's like a really relatable, stream of consciousness. Oh, mere saath bhi hua, mere saath bhi hua, mere saath bhi hua. It's me, it's me being talked about, right? I think more men should read this book to understand it's not a very big mystery that what women think and want, and you just keep constantly avoiding it. That's why you're not getting the damn answer, right? You think that women are after money, you think that all women are like this, all women are like this, all women are like this. Men think of women as this monolith who just will like them if they have money, or if they have political power or power of any sort, or if they look attractive, whatever. Fine, there must be people there who must be opting for all of that. Same for the men, same can be said for the men as well. But I think this idea that what love means to women and how Shah Rukh's icon sort of portrays that, and sort of brings it to the fore, is something that men should read up on, right? And since I think it does a very good job of breaking it down for even the most layman reader to actually understand what she's saying. And for the very logical types, she has peppered the book with enough statistics and data
Yeah.
to sort of convince you
No,
of this
love is
particular.
something which can't be quantified, so
Love can't be, but effects of it can be. Consequences of love, what is being understood as love, right? Is can be definitely quantified. Even if it's not quantified, you can understand it at a very visceral level in terms of socio-cultural nuances. So,
And the lack of it.
and the lack of it, right? So I think more men, please read this book. And I think on the closing, just to close this particular, my remarks on this will be that even if you're not a Shah Rukh fan, and even if all his movies are supremely problematic, and what he, everything, there is still something worth examining about his icon, right? And some people should take the time out to understand this, and they will not be disappointed. That's my takeaway from it.
yeah, I think that was a really good conversation about between a agnostic and borderline fan to a absolute fan. So it was I had fun having this conversation, and thank you both Bency and Nikita for spending some time speaking about this and many other things. I think that's a great place to end this conversation, and I hope the listeners also enjoy it. And as Nikita said, I think more men should also read this book because it has some substance and some perspective which is lacking in any other piece of work I have read. And I think it will definitely make things more easier for both men and women. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.